Today, we will be replacing the cam gear shaft seal on a Honda HRX 217. As you can see, mine is leaking here right around the valve cover. We will get started by draining the oil. I want to remove as much as possible before flipping it back over. I am now going to remove the engine cover to get better access to removing the valve cover. I will do that by loosening 3 10mm nuts. I can now remove the recoil and move it to the side. I will now pick up the rest of the engine cover and move it also to the side. Be careful not to kink the fuel line when you are moving the engine cover. I will now remove the spark plug wire if you have not already done so, and will now use that same 10mm to remove the bolts on the valve cover. They shouldn't be very tight. That's what it should look like, just being held on by the liquid gasket. I will now insert a narrow metal putty knife. We are working to place the putty knife between the valve cover and the place on the block where the bolt we removed would be attached. I will now lightly tap it with a hammer. I will now repeat this process on the other side. I will gently use my hand to pry the valve cover off. This is what the inside of the valve cover looked like with that liquid gasket. Now we have access to the shaft, we must push down to replace the O-ring. I find that this pick tool is useful for this part. I will push down on the top of the shaft as seen here using that pick tool. I also like to put a finger on the bottom of the shaft so I don't accidentally push too far. This is what it should look like after you've pushed it down. I will use that same pick tool to work the O-ring off. Here is the new one compared to the old. The old one is much harder. This is the O-ring part number that I used. I now worked the new one onto the shaft and into the groove. I now added a light bit of oil to the O-ring and pushed it up into place. This is what it should look like in place, with the longer end of the shaft facing the back of the mower and the shorter part towards the front. It is now time to prep the engine block side for a new liquid gasket by cleaning all the residual gasket off. The best way I've actually found to remove the gasket from the valve cover is to use a power washer. Just be careful when doing this. The final result turned out pretty well. I will be using Permatex Ultra Black to reseal the valve cover. We will add a nice thin coat around the perimeter of the valve cover, making sure all areas are covered with a good seal. I will now carefully put the valve cover into place. I will loosely reinstall the bolts. We won't be ready to torque the bolts down for an hour, so I will begin reassembly while waiting. It has now been an hour and we are ready to torque the bolts to 7 foot-pounds. I will use a cross pattern to ensure they are torqued evenly. I have now let the gasket maker cure for a few days. It's time to add oil back into the engine and start it up. And it does not appear that we have any leaks. Thank you so much for watching.